All right. Good morning, everybody. So, the big news today, obviously, is that Dan Bongino is resigning from the FBI. And, you know, all we really have right now is the fact that he said he's doing it. Now, there was a lot of speculation the last couple days leading up to this that he was going to announce it. A lot of pushback, like, no, that's just some shit lib reporter trying to catastrophize and split up the right and cause a rift, et cetera, et cetera. But no, he's formally announced that he's absolutely resigning in January, and you kind of saw the writing on the wall basically since the beginning. Uh, I'm gonna lie. I have my concerns about the direction that the current Trump administration is taking us. There have been some major misstep. Well, there's been one really major misstep, and that's been the handling of the Epstein case. Now, Dan Bongino was vocally in support of the release of the files, and vocally believed that Epstein was essentially assassinated, that it was an assassination dressed up to look like a suicide when Epstein was killed in prison. Um, what most intelligent people tend to see there. Damn it! I did a mic check. Yep.
Yep, it reset on me. You're right, Aaron. Good catch. Anyway, the Epstein case, we saw there were so many things that went wrong around it that were just so very convenient for anyone trying to cover something up. Cameras down, security guards away from their station. The method of the suicide appears to be pretty much physically impossible. Like little context there. When I say the method seems to be physically impossible, let's not forget that when Epstein killed himself, he was apparently found having hanged himself, asphyxiated himself to death, using a lightweight, low quality bed sheet tied to the railing on his prison bunk, right? So there was no room for him to do a drop, which is traditionally part of a hanging death that involves a sharp trauma to the neck. I'm not saying it's completely impossible, but highly improbable. We had a soldier, Mario and I had a soldier that we dealt with, believe it or not, at DLI, who attempted suicide in that way more than once and failed repeatedly. And I think there was a lot more cry for help than sincere attempt involved there. But this kid used a web belt. So for those of you who aren't familiar, we're talking about the kind of heavy duty strap material that you use for a pistol belt or tactical bag straps, rucksack strap, right? He used a web belt and tried to hang himself off the doorknob once, off the side of the bunk bed once. And he was basically found passed out. He'd cut off his air and blood supply enough to knock himself out, but was still getting enough to stay alive until he was found. Right now, had he been left like that for a period, then it would have eventually been fatal, sure. But we're to believe that that would suggest that we're to believe that Epstein was left hanging for hours without anybody checking on him. Sergeant Major points out, I think Bongino has serious health issues that are exacerbated by the stress of the job. I suspect that is, I agree. I suspect that's also a major factor. I seem to recall something about him having a pretty serious, I don't know if tumor is the right word, but he had a spot on his neck that he did a show where he talked about health concerns and mortality projections, where he was legitimately concerned about his own health. But he did announce that he's going to step down. He's going to leave the position of number 2 at the FBI. And yeah, Aaron, you're catching up. Yeah, he was battling cancer in the past, but I imagine there and hey, like, before I say anything else, let me be very, very clear. We've basically got nothing but speculation to go on here. Nothing but speculation at present. Now, it's not wild speculation. It is speculation that is informed by evidence that's been presented in the past. After having been a vocal critic of the handling of the Epstein case under Trump 1 and especially under Biden, it's awful convenient that all the Democrats are now super interested in the Epstein case, when they were calling us all crazy conspiracy theorists for even suggesting that he was involved in human trafficking. Look, let me take you back in the Wayback Machine real quick, because every one of these shills, like the Krasenstein brothers, etc., that idiot that Tim Pool had on his show last night, I forget the guy's name, but he's a fucking retard. Completely lacks any basic grounding in reality. But every one of those, back during the first Trump administration, when everything went down with Epstein to begin with, where, by the way, let me remind you, there was an attempted murder against Epstein by a mob and Clinton-tied inmate before he killed himself. And Bongino was a vocal critic of all the handling of that, and constantly calling for the release of those files and the correct legal and prosecutorial actions to be taken against the people involved with Epstein, and all of that. And then all of a sudden, Bongino, I mean, he was basically, as he was walking into the FBI headquarters to be sworn in, still saying, I'm going to get to the bottom of the Epstein case. And then 30 seconds after he's been sworn in, he says, "Oh yeah, no, I've seen the footage. Epstein absolutely killed himself. It was a suicide." But we all saw the clip where he did that, where he and Kash Patel, another vocal critic of the concerns, all of a sudden we've got a hostage video, right? It looked very much like they were, okay, yeah, I'll say whatever you want me to say. Just please stop hurting my children. Right? Very much felt that way. Between health concerns, battling cancer, and the stress of a job, of one of the most stressful jobs you can hope to have, heading the Federal Bureau of Investigations, then I think it's very reasonable to speculate that that's basically what's going on. You've got health concerns. You've got, hey, I'm here and somehow my hands are still tied. I should be the one tying hands, not the one having my hands tied. Right? Yeah, there's a lot of stress to go around there. And let's not forget, Bongino walked away from a multi-million-dollar job, or a multi-million-dollar podcast. Right? He was doing what I do, but for money. one of the most successful podcasts on air ever. And he walked away from that to go and do what amounts to community service, especially by the standards of the level he was playing at. So the prediction that I'll make, the speculation that I'll really engage in, maybe not speculation. Maybe that's not the right word. What I hope is that he gets on air and he tells us what happened. I hope he gets on air and starts airing some dirty laundry. But let's not get too, let's not let our glasses get too rosy on that view, because the fact is this, and the cancer may be a factor here as well, but the fact is this: if Bongino comes back to his podcast and starts airing enough dirty laundry to force elements of the government to take actions to which they have been resistant, he'll be in trouble. He might be, if he were to go that route, he would essentially be making the choice to say, I've decided to sacrifice my life in service of this nation and the truth that it deserves to hear. Aaron Olson asks, will the NDAs allow him to talk? No. But sort of. No doubt, obviously, Dan has signed some NDAs, been read in on a lot of classified shit that he's not going to be able to discuss, or at least that the law will not allow him to discuss. There are ways. Here's an example. If Stormy Daniels never made any of the claims she made against Donald Trump, and all she ever said was, Donald Trump gave me money and I signed a non-disclosure agreement, you would make some logical assumptions and probably be right. There are ways to use the language to transmit the information without technically having broken the NDA. And so we might see a little bit of that. Obviously, there is some risk there, because that kind of informational dissemination obviously lends itself to massive vulnerability for exploitation by wild conspiracy theorization. When you give somebody just enough information to draw conclusions, nothing guarantees that they'll draw the conclusions you want them to. Excuse me. I apologize. Pitt Danny says, I bet Dan had problems with cleaning out the FBI and the people that are not fired. Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me either. But really, we don't have any more information than that. We've got what we know, which is that Dan Bongino posted this tweet. Oh, there you go. I will be leaving my position with the FBI in January. I want to thank President Trump, AG Bondi, and Director Patel for the opportunity to serve with purpose. Most importantly, I want to thank you, my fellow Americans, for the privilege to serve you. God bless America and all those who defend her. Right? Let's give that one another heart. So it is official, right? It is in fact an official. He has made the statement, and you may have, I don't know if you noticed or not, but this is not, this is the official FBI Deputy Director Bongino account. This isn't like his personal account or his show branded account. This is the FBI Deputy Director Bongino. That's his official government. Because, yes, there is such a thing as an official government X account. And he's got one. All right. So there's something else I wanted to talk about this morning. Like I said, we don't really know anything else yet. There's plenty to speculate on, and I'm sure we'll get more information as time comes out. And I fully expect that Bongino is going to come back to the podcast circuit, and it may be the case that Trump tapped him and said, "Hey, Dan, we're not getting enough done here at the FBI. We're basically getting our asses kicked because we underestimated the power of the swamp and the deep state, and their pushback is just too strong, too effective. We're going into the midterms next year. You are who you are, Dan Bongino. It maybe you can do more for the cause, more for the campaign, more for the country, going back to the podcast and helping drive Republicans to the polls. Because, I mean, let's be real, next year is a midterm. And the historical data tells us a couple of things that are important to know. Midterm elections tend to favor the party out of power. And Republicans don't show up to vote. Generally. Republicans generally are a lower propensity voter than Democrats are. Right? Republicans tend to have jobs and go to work. Whereas Democrats tend to either be unemployed or they work in jobs like bullshit make-work government jobs where basically their job is to sit around and file bullshit paperwork and complain about politics and men. Right? Your average Democrat voter spends more time complaining about the current administration and the evil white man than they do working. And that's true across every race, color, and creed and gender/sex of Democrat voter. And Sergeant Major points out rightly, this is important. No, and you're wrong. You're actually wrong there, Sergeant Major. Most Republicans only vote while they're alive. No, Republicans only vote Republican when they're alive. They keep voting when they die. They just switch parties. I mean that's how you can tell the Democrats are evil, because we get all the mail-in ballots from hell, right? So the other thing that happened yesterday that's worth a little bit of conversation. And then, oh damn, I got to be on the road soon. Okay. Now, Pitt Danny, correct. They vote when Trump is on the ballot, and that's another problem we're going to face going into next year's election, next year's midterm elections. Is Trump is not on the ballot technically. Now, he is on the ballot in spirit, very, very much, and I guarantee you, both the Republicans and the Democrats next year are going to work their asses off to make sure that the ballot is treated as if Trump's name is on it. Because the fact is, if we don't have an overwhelming strong showing and win just about everything that can be won in the midterms next year, if the Democrats take control of the House and Senate, Donald Trump will be impeached, and then J.D. Vance will be impeached. Right? And they will just keep impeaching until there's a Democrat in the White House by the end of 2027. And then going into 2028, they'll declare war They'll declare that World War III has officially begun, with Russia and Venezuela being the axis of evil. And they'll treat it as if Trump is the head of that coalition, and suspend elections in 2028. I wish that were hyperbole. I really do. But the fact is, we've seen that these people are completely jaded, and essentially they believe that they are immune to law. They have absolutely no interest in what the law is or how the law operates. Right? Something that's trending on X today is a reminder that the 1996 law that explicitly gives Donald Trump the authority to do the military strikes that he's been doing on the Venezuela drug boats is actually a law that was authored by Chuck Schumer, which, I ain't gonna lie, is hilarious. But last night, Trump gave us kind of a year-end wrap-up. It's only about a 20-minute speech. I think it's 18 and a half minutes. We are not going to watch the full speech today. We are going to watch a few clips.
The love and prayers to our entire nation, to the people of Australia, and especially all those affected by the horrific and anti-Semitic terrorist attack. And that's exactly what it is, anti-Semitic, that took place on a Hanukkah celebration in Sydney. What a terrible, terrible thing. We don't learn. We're joined in mourning all of those who were killed, and we're praying for the swift recovery of the wounded. Some are very horrifically wounded, as you probably know. All nations must stand together against the evil forces of radical Islamic terrorism, and we're doing that. Joining us tonight, our Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick is doing a fantastic job.
That's something incredibly important that he just pointed out there. The attack in Australia, Bondi Beach. We talked about all the rhetoric from the left yesterday that, oh, the guns are the problem. It's the guns that are the problem. Oh, guns, guns, guns. No, the problem you have are Muslims. They're violent, dangerous creatures. And like I won't rehash it. I won't rehash it in full like I went through it yesterday. But the fact is that the data overwhelmingly says that the majority, well over half, and in some places, well over 3/4 of Muslims say that violence in support of jihad or Islam is justifiable. Right? And you'll get the psychotic rhetoric, the idiot. Oh, well, not every Muslim's a terrorist. Not every Muslim's a suicide bomber. You're right. Only about 0.01% of them are actually violent creatures, or I'm sorry, not actually violent. Only about 0.01% of them actually carry out the violence. But they outnumber you 10-1. The majority of them are in support of the violence. And so they create the social permission framework that says, hey, you, the craziest of our crazies, you have our blessing. In fact, you have our support and endorsement. We want you to do the do. Right? It is exactly the same thing as every Democrat out there saying, you know, we should punch Nazis. We should punch Nazis. We should all punch Nazis. Right? And then, you know, over and over again, I sure do wish somebody would do the thing to the guy. And all of a sudden, Donald Trump gets shot in the face. Charlie Kirk gets shot in the neck. Right? Because they're out there screaming, hey, hey, hey. Right? it's the same problem that I point to when I say that all active doxing is the same as attempting murder. Essentially, when you dox, you're saying, here's the information, here's the name and location of the troublesome priest. Now, please, 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 I don't know who the craziest violent sociopath out there is, but would everybody please make sure that he knows this name and address for me? Because I have a troublesome priest of whom I need to be rid. So no, the guns aren't the problem. Right? Like I pointed out yesterday, almost homogeneously white, impoverished Appalachia might have a bit of a meth problem, but they don't have drive-bys and gang wars. Whereas Chicago is just like, it's essentially a risk board made up of minorities. It's a minority risk board. We should publish that as a video game. Okay. But, and again, this speech from last night was kind of the State of the Nation, State of the Union type of thing. And he had this to say on immigration, which this is an absolute net positive because, of course, one of the largest blocks of illegal immigrants that we have are Muslims, including Somali Muslims.
A major factor in driving up housing costs was the colossal border invasion. We have never been invaded. This is the worst thing that, frankly, in my opinion, the worst thing that the Biden administration did to our country is the invasion at the border. The last administration and their allies in Congress brought in millions and millions of migrants and gave them taxpayer-funded housing while your rent and housing costs skyrocketed. Over 60% of growth in the rental market came from foreign migrants. At the same time, illegal aliens stole American jobs and flooded emergency rooms, getting free health care and education paid for by you, the American taxpayer. They also increased the cost of law enforcement by numbers so high that they are not even to be mentioned. For the first time in 50 years, we are now seeing reverse migration as migrants go back home, leaving more housing and more jobs for Americans. In the year before my election, all net creation of jobs was going to foreign migrants. Since I took office, 100% of all net job creation has gone to American-born citizens, 100%.
Now, that's one of those Trump claims that
a major factor.
I would not blame somebody for being dubious of, and it's a hard one to fact check, but it's an interesting claim. But let's talk about that a little bit. Okay, and I'm gonna have to wrap up, so I'm not gonna do another. I've got a couple more clips, but I'm not gonna have time for them. He made some claims there, not least of which the reverse migration. That's a great thing. Now, we have not gotten rid of the 20 or 30 million illegals that came into the country, but even the 2 or 3 million that we have apparently gotten rid of, and that's a number that's climbing every day. This is all positive momentum in the right direction. Now, I'll also point to he talked about job numbers, and related obviously is inflation in the economy. And we're hearing the libs constantly, well, Trump hadn't improved the economy. The economy's worse than ever before. What? Like, remember, right before the election, there was a clip that we covered, and it went a bit viral with it's Mika Brzezinski and whatever that little lady boy that she's married to on air, and one of them she said something about how butter was $8, and he was just shocked. Right? What do you mean butter? What? Or no, somebody else said butter was $8 when they went grocery shopping the day before. Somebody they were interviewing said, "Yeah, butter's $8," and Lady Boy said, It's like, what? No, that can't be right. Because, right, the person they were interviewing was like, Biden's economy is awful. Groceries are through the roof. Butter's $8. That can't be right. And, his wife, Mika, is right there. Yeah, that's right. And that was one of those moments where, a lot of the country realized, oh, limousine liberals don't do their own grocery shopping, so they have no idea what the groceries costs. When you've got a $20 million a year salary and you pay somebody else to just keep your kitchen stocked so that your chef can do your cooking, well, of course you think the economy's doing great because you have no fucking clue. You're completely divorced from it. Right? Andrew Tate said, he's basically explaining the difference between rich people and poor people. And he said, basically, if you're rich, right, if you know how much money you have, you're not rich. Right. You may not be licking empty cans of soup to stay alive, but you're not rich. When you're rich, you don't know how much money you have because you've put $20 million with this broker and $40 million with this broker, and you've got bunches and bunches of properties out there, and it's not possible for you to just off the top of your head how much are all the properties worth, which one's up, which one's down, how much how are all the different stocks performing, et cetera, right? That's Elon Musk. They're telling us that Elon Musk is worth somewhere between 600 billion and $1 trillion right now. And the fact is, that's not an estimate. That's as close as there ever can be to an exact figure. Elon Musk, it will never be possible to intelligently say Elon Musk is worth exactly $679 billion, right? That would be incorrect because from moment to moment, right, he doesn't have $679 billion in a checking account. No, there's a company that has a value. There's another company. There's multiple companies that have values. Those companies are comprised of individual properties that have values, right? There are investment portfolios whose values fluctuate from not just from day to day, but in some cases from minute to minute, right? So now you're into Heisenberg's theory of economics, right? The more certain you are of how much you're worth, the less you probably are worth. Because the more you're worth, right? Money is energy. And I can get lost down a whole tirade of witchcraft and druidry and energy transfer in this conversation. Money is energy, right? Money is not wealth. Currency is not wealth. It is a mechanism like a clock that we use to measure subdivided and subaggregated value so that we can understand how transferable and exchequable energy can be represented in commerce and exchange, right? So the more of it you pack into one place, the more volatile and unpredictable it becomes. The more energy you pack into anything, the more it moves around. That's not analogous to the way money works. That is identical to the way money works. The more of it you pack into something, go find yourself $100 billion and try to stuff it into an egg carton and tell me if it doesn't start to get a little shaky. Right? And that's just with the abstract measurement tool. It's literally energy. And the more of it you've got packed in, the more volatile and unpredictable it becomes. Okay, I'm 5 after. I'm going to have to go ahead and wrap it up because I got places to be this morning. Thanks for watching this morning, guys. Thank God Donald Trump called out the Muslims for all the murders because it's really well beyond time that we start evacuating the enemy from our country. We love you, and we will see you tomorrow. one last thing before I go. Let me get you guys. I just want to remind you, I'm not gonna raid you somewhere else this morning, but I want you guys to tell me, not in the live chat, leave it in the comments under this video, please, what you thought of the shows. I know the Bible Thumper shows that I sent you guys to raid. Hey, we're on early, and that's who's on. The Bible Thumper shows that I rated you guys to, I thought they were pretty good for what they are. And if there's anybody that you know that's live between 8 and 9 when we go off air most mornings, that you would put forward as a good candidate for a raid recipient from the Brushfire Mind, right? Somebody that our audience is going to enjoy, and that has an audience where there's likely crossover, where you can chit chat with those guys in their live chat and try to bring some of that new blood over to our show in the morning, especially if they happen to go live at 8 o'clock, so that we can, rate them at like 8:07 right now, right? Quarter after 9, or even as late as 9 o'clock. You guys know this show goes from 7:30 until at least 8 o'clock, or until I'm tired of talking, right? I think the longest we've ever done the morning show is 4 hours, and that's a rare bird. But yeah, leave it in the comments below the video, not the live chat, so I can pull it up quick and easy later. If you like the ones we've rated already, we can raid them again. Or if there's anybody you recommend that you'd like to see us raid, I'm happy to take suggestions. Y'all be safe out there. Love you. Okay, I pushed the button.